It would have been easier to believe that night was an exception, a single moment that slipped through. But standing there, watching everything unfold, I knew better. That feeling, the quiet erasure, the way people adjusted around Marcus while I disappeared, wasn't new. It just hadn't been this visible before. Growing up, the pattern had always been softer. Marcus would forget things, small at first. Promises he made, plans he changed, responsibilities he left halfway through. When it affected other people, there were always explanations. He was stressed. He was figuring things out. He meant well. My mother would smooth it over with gentle words, shifting the focus away from what happened to why it happened. And somehow, the outcome stayed the same. He moved forward. I adjusted. I remember one summer in particular. I had been saving money for months, working quietly, putting things aside with a kind of discipline no one ever noticed. Marcus had an idea then, a small business he was convinced would change everything. He talked about it constantly, his voice full of certainty, like success was already waiting for him. When it didn't work, he didn't accept it right away. He kept pushing, kept insisting he was close, just needed a little more time, a little more support. My mother believed him. Or maybe she just wanted to. She came to me one evening, her tone soft, careful, already shaped in a way that made refusal feel like something unfair. "He just needs a little help," she said. I knew what that meant. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I handed over what I had saved without asking for anything in return. Not because I was certain it would help, but because saying no had never felt like a real option. That money didn't come back. Neither did the conversation about it. It was never framed as something I lost. It was something he needed. Something temporary that quietly became permanent. And when the business ended, the focus shifted again, toward his next idea, his next attempt, his next version of starting over. No one asked what it cost me. That was the pattern. Not just in money, but in everything. If plans overlapped, mine moved. If something went wrong, I absorbed it. If there was tension, I stayed quiet until it passed. It wasn't spoken. It didn't need to be. Over time, you learn your role without anyone explaining it. Watching Marcus that night, I realized he had learned his role too, just in a different way. He expected space to be made for him because it always had been. But now he was in a place where that didn't happen automatically. Here, he had to earn it, and he was trying. I saw it in the way he laughed a little longer than necessary when someone important spoke. The way he listened closely, not just to the words, but to the tone behind them. The way he adjusted himself to match what was expected, even if it meant stepping away from who he used to be. It wasn't confidence. It was calculation, and the people around him noticed. Not openly. Not in a way that would cause discomfort, but in small, precise ways. Conversations that ended just a second too soon. Smiles that didn't fully settle. Attention that shifted the moment someone else entered the space. He was included, but not. Fully welcomed, but not trusted, and the more he tried to close that gap, the more visible it became. I wondered if he felt it the same way I used to feel things at home. That quiet awareness that something was off, but not having the language to explain it. Just a constant sense of needing to adjust, to do a little more to prove something that no one had clearly defined. Brittany moved through the room without that weight. She didn't adjust. She didn't need to. People came to her, not the other way around. When she spoke, they listened. When she paused, they waited. She belonged. Marcus stood beside her, close enough to be part of it, but still slightly outside the center. And the distance between those two positions, even if it looked small, was everything. I had lived in that space before, not fully included, not fully excluded, just present enough to be useful, invisible enough to be overlooked. The difference was, I had learned to step back from it. Marcus was still stepping toward it, and no one was stopping him, not my mother. Not Brittany, not anyone in that room, because as long as the structure stayed intact, as long as the roles were being played, there was no reason to question it, except for one. And standing there, watching it all repeat itself in a different form, I realized something that felt both familiar and final. I had always been the one expected to adjust, but I didn't feel that expectation anymore. Not in the same way, not this time. The moment that changed everything didn't come with noise. It came with something much quieter, a simple conversation. I was near the edge of the terrace when I heard Marcus speaking to Brittany's father again. The tone was different this time. Less careful, more certain. Like he had decided he understood the rules of the room well enough to speak without hesitation. "I just need a small push," he said. "After that, everything will scale. I've done it before. I just didn't have the right backing." There it was again. The same pattern, just dressed in better words. Brittany's father listened without interrupting. That silence wasn't agreement. It rarely is. It was assessment. The kind that weighs not what is said, but what is repeated. Marcus continued anyway. "I'm not asking for charity," he added quickly. "Just alignment. That's all I need." Alignment. He said it like it meant something stable. But I knew what it really meant. It meant shifting risk onto someone else while keeping the credit close. I stayed where I was, watching from a distance as the conversation stretched out. Marcus wasn't begging. He wasn't desperate. That was the interesting part. He genuinely believed he was being reasonable. That made it more dangerous. Brittany finally stepped closer, resting her hand lightly on his arm again. A grounding gesture. Or maybe a controlling one. It was hard to tell anymore. "You've said this before," she said softly. Marcus didn't react immediately. "I know," he replied. "But this time is different." That sentence. I had heard it before. Not from him, but from people like him. People who confuse repetition with progress. Brittany's father nodded slowly, as if absorbing the weight of it. Then he asked a simple question. "What happens if it fails again?" The question wasn't aggressive. It was clean, direct. Marcus hesitated. That hesitation said more than any answer could, because there was no real answer, not one that didn't shift responsibility somewhere else. "I've already absorbed enough risk," Brittany's father continued, "so I need clarity, not optimism." Clarity. That word changed the energy of the space immediately. Marcus straightened slightly. "I understand risk," he said. "I just need one opportunity where I'm not starting from zero. Not because it was unfair, but because it was familiar." That same logic had followed him everywhere. The idea that he was always just one chance away from everything changing. And the belief that someone else was responsible for giving him that chance. I had once believed it too. Not about him, but about fairness in general. That effort naturally led somewhere. That consistency would eventually be recognized. That people would see what you carried if you just kept carrying it long enough. Life had corrected that belief quietly, without explanation. Brittany's father finally spoke again. "Opportunity doesn't remove accountability," he said. "It just reveals it." Silence followed. Not dramatic silence, not emotional, just the kind that settles when something true has been said too plainly to ignore. Marcus looked at him, then briefly at Brittany, then away again. And in that moment, I saw it clearly. He wasn't being judged on potential anymore. He was being evaluated on patterns, and patterns don't change just because someone wants them to. I stepped forward before I fully decided to, not fast, not dramatic, just enough to enter the edge of their awareness. Marcus noticed me first. His expression shifted immediately. Not surprised this time. Something more grounded, something heavier. "You're still here," he said quietly. It wasn't meant to be harsh, but it landed that way anyway. "I didn't come to leave," I replied. Brittany looked between us again, her composure tightening slightly. She was starting to realize I wasn't just a guest anymore. I was a variable in something she had already assumed was stable. Marcus exhaled slowly. "We'll talk later," he said, almost automatically. But I didn't move, because this was the moment. The boundary wasn't loud. It didn't need to be, it was just clear. "I'm not here to fix this," I said calmly. "And I'm not here to support it either." The words didn't carry anger. That's what made them heavier. Marcus frowned slightly. "Support what?" I looked at him for a moment before answering. The pattern. That was the first time his expression really shifted. Not confusion, recognition. Because deep down, he already knew what I meant. He just hadn't been forced to look at it from the outside yet. Brittany's father stepped back slightly, giving the moment space without interfering. That itself told me everything I needed to know. He understood exactly what was happening, and he was letting it unfold. Marcus lowered his voice. "You don't understand the situation." "I understand it better than you think," I said. A pause, then I added, softer but sharper. "I've been watching it my entire life." That was the boundary, not anger, not confrontation, clarity. For the first time that night, Marcus didn't respond immediately, and in that silence, something between us shifted. Not loudly, not visibly, but permanently. After that moment, I didn't argue anymore. There was nothing left to convince. No version of the conversation where repeating myself would suddenly make him see differently. People don't change their understanding in the